In this video, we're going to look at some more advanced options for the execute window. So, I've got another page of the execute grid open here, and I'm just going to set a grid size again of 10 by 10. And whereas in the previous video we recorded some cues to the execute grid and copied some cues over, we're going to look at more sort of for busking now. So what I'm going to do is copy over some groups and palettes to the execute window. So first of all, if I go to layout 1, I can say copy my spot group, go back to the execute grid and select where I want it, and it's copied over that group of spots there. And I can do the same for palettes as well. So if I go out to layout 1, I'm going to select my spot group, highlight a load of palettes, so I'm going to select some color palettes and say copy to the execute grid there, and then I'll do the same for positions as well. So copy some of these positions like so. So I've now copied over that spot group and some positions and colors, and this is going to be really useful for busking. So instead of having these in a separate position and color window, I can layer these out exactly as I want them. So I can easily say select my group and locate and be applying positions and colors like so within the execute grid. And there's also some really useful busking options that we can apply as well to help us out with our busking. So if I go to assign special at the top here, I'm going to select where I want it first and go assign special, and then we've got all busking and simple busking here, a couple of different options. I'm going to say all busking like so, and it gives us a few times and effects and a tap to time button as well, which are going to be really useful for busking. So if we don't want anything, we can remove it as well. If I say press remove and select say parts 4, I don't want that, and that's gone like so. So if I now say select my spots and locate those, I can say 3 seconds for example and select a palette, and that's going to apply that palette over 3 seconds. So we've got some really useful options there. I can easily say apply some of these effects like a white flick for example, and there we go, it's applied that like so, and again it's applied that over that 3 seconds because that stayed highlighted. So that's a few of the busking options. And we can also set regions around things in the execute grid as well. So how I'd do this is I'd highlight wherever I want a region around. So I'm going to highlight this group and everything here. And I'm going to say set region here. And once I've done it, you see I get a thick white line around the edge here to show that all this is within a region. What this does is it means that everything within this region is going to automatically apply to that one group. So generally you'd have one group of fixtures per region, and then you can have the same color palettes and positions and things in different regions, and they're just going to apply to that group that's within that region. So I can just automatically apply things like so, and it's just going to apply to those spots that are within that region. Another great use for regions is solo items. So if I copy over a couple of cues, say copy beam tilt there, and copy wash tilt there, by default I can have these both active at once, but if I select these and change the item type as we covered in the previous video to button solo, it means that I can now only have one of these active at once, so soloed. And what this does is it solos anything that's in a row together touching each other like so. But if I want my wash tilt cue, if I move it from here to here, I want it there, these are no longer going to act as solo buttons. They can be active at the same time, even though they're set to solo, they're not touching each other, so they're not going to act as solo buttons together. But I can make this work with regions. So if I select these here and say set region, now anything within this region that's set to solo will act as solo. So I can just select the wash tilt and the beam tilt separately. They don't have to be touching each other as long as they're set to solo and within the same region, that will work. The final thing we're going to look at is setting up some other special items on your execute grid as well. So if I say select this square here and again go to assign special, we've got quite a few different options here. So at the top left here we've got execute page. You can set up a custom execute page to jump to, or just page up and down. And then we've got a few useful buttons as well that you'd normally find on your console. You've got a close button to close the execute grid, and you've got things like locate and clear as well. Under timecode and clock, we've got a few different options here. So I can say select timecode, and this will display the current timecode value. I'm not currently running any timecode, so it's at 0 currently. Again, back to assign special, under timecode and clock, I can also set either a 24-hour or 12-hour clock on there. There we go. We can view the clock on the execute grid. Back to assign special again. We've got a few more options here. We've got some macros like lamp on, reset and lamp off for our fixtures. And we've also got things like encoders. So I can say select encoder, and I'm going to set an attribute encoder on my execute grid. And what this does is it gives us an encoder to control a particular attribute of our fixtures. So say I want a pan encoder on my execute grid. I'm going to select pan. I'm going to make it a little bit larger for when we view it in a minute. And if I now go to view execute, select my spots, locate those and put them in a position, I can now use this pan encoder to adjust the pan of those fixtures. So you can assign various different attribute encoders around your execute grid. So that's a bit more about the execute grid, some more advanced functions that are really particularly useful for busking shows. In the next video, we're going to move on to looking at timecode and scheduled events.